Good afternoon. Today is July 25th, 2015. My name is Nancy Uphoff. I am conducting an oral history interview at Leroy American Legion Post 79 in Leroy, Illinois, with Samuel D. Eddy. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Samuel D. Eddy. I live at 305 East School Street, Leroy, Illinois.
What war did you serve in?
Vietnam era.
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted.
At what age were you when you enlisted?
17.
Right out of high school? Where were you living at the time?
Farmer City, Illinois.
Were you single or married?
Single.
Why did you join?
It was something that I wanted to do to serve my country and get some experience in life.
Which branch of the service are you in?
Navy.
And why did you choose the Navy?
My family had a history of Navy veterans, and I had just desired to go to sea.
Mm-hmm. Do you recall your first days in the service?
Yes.
What can you tell us about that?
The first thing, when we went on the base, the guys were hanging their heads out the window saying, "You'll be sorry."
So how did that feel?
Well, I got over it.
Where did you have your boot camp training?
Great Lakes, Chicago, Illinois.
Mm-hmm. And what are your memories about that experience?
It was cold up there. But I had a good experience, and I liked it, I enjoyed it, and I kept my nose to the grindstone and did what I was supposed to.
So how did your parents feel about you enlisting at such a young age?
Well, I just had my mother, and she consented to sign the papers. And,
because you were so young?
Yeah.
Did you get to go home on leave after boot camp, or did you go straight to your first assignment?
I had leave.
And where was your first assignment then?
My first assignment was at Dam Neck, Virginia, for my Class A school.
And what was your job in that?
To learn missile technology.
Do you remember your instructors?
I remember some of them, but I don't remember their names. I just remember an incident where they repeated over, "If you fail in this course, they'll put you on a fleet oiler in the Red Sea."
So that encouraged you to keep
Very
on trying.
much, yeah.
Did you feel like it was a difficult experience, or some people have that with basic training?
No, I didn't think it was so difficult, but I had to study and apply myself.
Do you have any special buddies from boot camp still?
No.
So you served during the Vietnam era. What exactly did you do?
I was a missile technician on a submarine.
What was the name of the submarine?
USS Andrew Jackson, SSBN 619.
What was it like living on a submarine? And how long were you there on it for?
We had a very spacious submarine. It was big, and it was comfortable. So I was on it for 4.5 years.
How long would you stay on it at a time?
We would normally a patrol would last 66 days, and during that time we would stay submerged for that length of time. We didn't visit any ports or do anything.
And what was your job on the submarine?
Missile technician. I worked on Polaris submarine, Polaris missiles.
So is that watching to see if missiles were coming your way or where they were going?
No, we maintained them.
Okay.
We carried missiles. And then we had support equipment that we had to maintain too.
Where did the submarine travel to?
We did all of our patrols in the Mediterranean, from Rota, Spain.
Did you see any combat?
No.
What are some of your memorable experiences from being on the submarine?
I think the first one I remembered that brought back a lot of memories was when we went through the Straits of Gibraltar. We caught a cable, and that cable slid all the way down our hull, and all I could think of was all the old submarine movies that I'd seen in World War II, where they had a mine connected at the end of the cable. So, but it turned out just to be a fisherman's net or something we got caught up in, and that was it. Basically, a lot of the daily activities were just, business as usual. Every now and then we had moments of excitement.
The question is, what was the weather like? But under the water, it's
We had perfect weather.
perfect. Did you say for 60 days?
66 days.
66.
We made our own air, made our own water, and had plenty of food.
Do you remember any of the guys that you worked with on the submarine?
Yes, we keep in contact with each other, and I belong to U.S. submarine veterans, and we see each other on occasion, and we email each other all the time.
Were you awarded any medals or citations during service?
In submarines, you have to qualify in submarines, and that means you have to know all the different operating systems on the ship: air, hydraulics, electric, engineering, navigation, and so forth. So you have a lot of work to do to get that all in your head, and then you have to appear before a board, and the board questions you on the systems. And then you have what they call a walkthrough. And they just walk through and point out different things, and they say, what does this do, and how do you do that, and so forth. And once you've qualified submarines, you see the dolphins up there, you get awarded a pair of dolphins. And that's a very prized possession.
How many men were on the submarine? Did you say Andrew Jackson?
Yes. It carried 153 men and officers.
What did you do for entertainment on the submarine?
We played a lot of pinochle, acey-deucey, read a lot of books, and just chit-chatted with the guys.
Could you communicate with your family at all?
No, they would allow us to receive what they called family grams, and it contained only 15 words. So there wasn't a whole lot that they could communicate. There'd be things like, got a license for the car. Oh, that's great, what else is happening?
What was the food like on the submarine?
We ate very good. Our food allowance was higher than the rest of the Navy, and consequently we were able to get better selections of food. Our cooks were fantastic. We were allowed at midnight to go in, and if we wanted a steak, we could throw it on there, use steak, or they had all kinds of cold cuts you could get. And the cook said, just if you make a mess, clean it up. That was the only requirement.
Fair enough. So I'm guessing that when you went off on your 66 days, is that called a mission or a...
Yeah, I would call it a patrol.
Patrol.
Yeah.
And you had to get everything you needed on board the submarine before you left.
Yes.
Did you encounter any other submarines, enemy submarines? Did they?
On occasion, we would hear them. one occasion, our captain sent us to Battle Stations Torpedo for real, and what had happened, they had caught a Russian submarine on the surface, and he was experiencing a fire or some kind of emergency, and they had the crew out on the deck, and so we just took a precaution, to make sure he wasn't any kind of a setup or whatever. And so we went to Battle Stations Torpedo, and the funny thing about it was we always went to Battle Stations Missile because we were missile techs, and that was our mission. And so when they said torpedo, where are we supposed to go? We hadn't been there. So we had to laugh about that.
Being underwater like that for so long, did you feel any pressure or stress?
Well, the stress comes from just the fact that we were gone so long from our families and everything. But basically, we knew our mission, and we knew what we had to do to complete our mission. We had a captain that told us one time, he said, I had two purposes, and that is to get the weapons platform to where it's supposed to be, and to keep water out of the people tank.
Good missions. Was there anything special you did for good luck?
Oh, not that I know of.
Well, when you're on land, the men would talk about USO tours. Of course, you didn't have any of that.
No.
So, and when you started, when you left for, not a mission, what did you call it?
Patrol.
Patrol. Where did you leave from?
Charleston, South Carolina.
And then you'd return to Charleston?
Yes, and the ship had two crews, a blue and a gold, and we alternated every 90 days. And so when we were in Rhoda, part of that was upkeep, maintenance, whatever needed to be done to get ready to go see. While we were at home, the first 30 days you didn't do anything but acclimate yourself to being, off the sub, being able to see grass
And
sky, and you had your eyesight depth perception had to change because you couldn't see. Maybe 88 feet was the longest you ever looked at it.
So when you completed a patrol, you got, how much time did you get off for leave?
We got 90 days, what they call R&R or whatever, and we could basically just call in and say, yeah, we're going to be here or there or wherever, and then after that, 30 days was up, we would start what they call a training period. We would get new crewmen in and lose crewmen, so we retrained and acclimated them to what we did and so forth.
How many patrols did you go out on?
I made 7.
Over the course of how many years?
Over the course of about 4 years, roughly.
How long were you in the service?
7 years.
7 years. When you were home on leave in between patrols, could you go to your home to see your mother? Or?
Oh yeah, we could. Yeah, we could take leave and travel.
Were you able to do any traveling in the service? Because you always landed back in U.S. You didn't touch port. Did you touch port in any other place?
We landed, when we came back, we always flew into Boston, and then we flew from Boston to Charleston, South Carolina. And then we did the reverse on the way to Rhoda.
Do you remember any humorous or unusual events while on patrol, or even when you were on your 30-day retraining? Or
2 guys had been working on a piece of equipment in the engineering spaces, and they'd been up several hours. And we had a stairway in the back of the missile compartment that they had to get up to get back to engineering. And they were just dragging it. And one of them said to the other, Ollie, you better slow down or you're going to get a windburn.
Well, it's a good thing they kept their sense of humor.
Yes.
Do you have many photographs of your service time?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you keep a personal diary when you were on patrols?
The diary I kept, believe it or not, was what movies I'd watched. And I got a list of every movie I watched in 7 patrols.
So they must have had a place where you could watch these movies.
Yes, dining hall.
Yeah, but
mess hall.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And they showed one in the evening and one at midnight. Because you had different men getting off at different times.
Do you recall the day that you got out of the service?
Yes. Yeah. I think the hardest day was when I left the Andrew Jackson. That'd been my home for 4.5 years. And then when I was discharged, I was on the USS Holland, which was a submarine tender, and I didn't have much affection for it.
What is a submarine tender?
It carries all the repair crews and relief crews and all the supplies the submarine needs.
So it travels with the main submarine then?
No, it generally stays in one port. They had one in Rhoda and they had one in Charleston, South Carolina.
So you preferred the regular submarine?
Yes.
Did you ever consider re-enlisting?
On occasion, I thought I might, but then in the end, I always said I got out of the Navy because I was developing gills. Been under the water too much.
What was your favorite part about being in the Navy?
To tell you the truth, I was proud to serve my country. And I was very proud to be a submarine.
Did you say you had family who had been in the service?
Yes, I had several of my cousins that were older than me had been in World War II.
How old were you when you got out of the service?
I've been 25.
25. So your family knew did you just have your mother or did you have any siblings?
I had 2 other brothers.
Did you notice a difference in your home or community after you got back from the service?
Well, there's a natural evolution of people coming and going, and my classmates were all going. And when I come home, I thought, well, I think, you go around and visit people, they were all going too.
What did you do after you got home from the service?
I took a job in Bloomington, Illinois in General Electric Company, and I worked for General Electric Company in the design and evaluation lab for about 4 years, and then I was promoted to quality control, and I worked there for 3 years. Then I left General Electric and went into the ministry full-time seminary in Bluefield, West Virginia. I've ministered different churches for about 30 years.
Do you feel like your training in the military was helpful in your life after the military?
Oh, certainly. You had discipline, organization, and you just learned to look at life as a process. Each stage of your life, and it's kind of like the military in some respects.
Now, I know somewhat about basic training for like the Army. What was basic training like for the Navy? Did you have all the weapons training that? No,
they issued us rifles, but they were just mainly to carry. We didn't even go out and fire any. In 1960, about all they wanted to know is if you had a pulse. And if you had a pulse, then they'd take you. Actually, I was underweight. When I went in the Navy, I was 10 pounds underweight. By the time I got out of boot camp, I ate everything they stuck underneath my nose, and I put on the pounds I needed.
How do you exercise on a submarine?
We've got benches that you can press weights. That's about it. You can't do much walking or anything like that. There's no place to walk. But they had benches. An amusing story is we had 2 officers that used to come back to our compartment, and get a rag bin, which was just a bench, you know. And before they would come back, we had these weights that we used to put in the garbage stuff so it would sink to the bottom of the ocean. We'd slip one of them in there and cover it with rags. After 30 days, they could hardly get that thing out of the compartment, and one of them decided to look in it. And we all got a good laugh. They laughed at it too.
Well, they got their exercise,
Yes,
didn't they?
they sure did.
Now, you belong to a veterans organization?
Yes, I belong to the American Legion here, and I belong to U.S. Submarine Veterans in Peoria, Illinois.
And you have regular reunions?
Our ship does on occasion, yeah, about every 2 years or so, in different places.
Is the USS Andrew Jackson still being used?
No. It was decommissioned 1992. Probably shaved with it.
If you were doing it over again, would you go into the Navy?
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
Um,
I always thought my foxhole was better than the Army's foxhole because it was 2 1/4 HY90 steel wrapped around me.
Now, did the Vietnamese have any kind of, what kind of ocean, did they have submarines or were there allies, did they?
Mainly our Navy kept an eye on the Russians and the Chinese. We had submarines operating as surveillance, intelligence.
So you were probably out in the ocean looking at each other.
Yeah,
I mean,
could be. Yeah.
keeping
I know
track of each other.
the Russians had a base in Port of Santa Maria, and they tried to shadow us all the time, and wanted to, see if they could cause a problem or whatever. But generally, what we would do is, just send out a decoy, and they'd chase it, and we'd sneak out another direction.
What's the decoy like? What is?
Just another ship.
Uh-huh.
Just another submarine.
After you got out of the service, did you need to go to school for your job, or did you?
No.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Yes. I often thought about the job that I did and realized if we had to use those missiles, it's because they had already used theirs. So I always had the feeling that we were a deterrent. In other words, we kept them from doing anything bad. And so I've always looked at the military as the one responsibility the Constitution of the United States gives us is to protect the nation. And that means a strong military.
What would you say was the worst part about your deployment and being on the submarine for so long?
Being away from my wife.
Now, do you have children?
Yes, I have 4.
Were any of them born? Were you married before you went out? Oh, you were.
I was married in '64, and we had our first child about a month before I got out of the Navy.
So you were gone on some of those 66-day patrols
Yes.
when you had very small children.
Well, just one child, and then after I got out, we had the 3 others.
Have any of your children gone into the military?
No, I just had a grandson sign up with the Marines, though.
You didn't try to talk him into the Navy?
No. No.
If you were to do it again, and you'd certainly go into the Navy again, but do you think you would have continued a little longer, or were you glad to get out when you did?
Well, I was ready to get out. I was ready to get a family started. I was ready to get a job. And I was tired in one seat.
Yeah. Have you visited, I mean, do you kind of keep up on what submarines are like now?
Oh, yes. Yes.
A lot different?
In some ways, yeah. They got a lot of new trinkets on them.
Oh, yes. I'm sure they do.
A lot of new stuff, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we keep abreast of that pretty close.
Mm-hmm. Do you take any military magazines that keeps you up on what's going on?
Yes, we always have a stack of them up there for each branch of the service, and you can get a lot of information out of them and so forth.
So you're pretty active in this this Legion post.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I've been the commander, and I've been the adjutant. I've been all the different things they've had, and I'm currently the chaplain.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your military experience?
Go Navy, beat Army.
Okay. Can you think of any other questions? Now, when you married your wife, she knew you were in the military, and she
yes.
knew that she would be alone for these patrols that you were on.
The division I was in, like the missile division, they hung together. You know, and the other crew that was in while we was out made sure if anybody needed anything fixed or something happened, they were there to help.
Did she live on a military base while you were on patrol?
We lived off base. Not right next to it, but we lived off base.
Like in South Carolina?
Yeah, Charleston. Towards the end of my service, the Vietnam War was building up, and people were getting kind of nasty about the military. And we lived in a section of town that was, you know, it wasn't upper middle class for sure. But I told her, I said, get a dog, and the dog will be company for you. And most people don't want to come in the house and have a dog in it. And so that's all I told her. I came back 90 days later, and I came in the house, and there was this little dachshund running around on the floor, and I said, honey, where's the dog? She said, that's it. But, you know, that little guy, he was very alert. He never needed a doorbell, and he had a big bark.
That's a good kind of watchdog.
Yep. He was a good one. He traveled in 38 states with us, and I could write a book about his antics.
Do you know anybody whose name is up on the wall?
I know one fella who was from Pinckneyville, Illinois. He was a F-4 fighter pilot, and his plane crashed in Laos, and never found him, a plane or anything. He was MIA.
But did you go to school with him?
No, I lived in Pinckneyville where he was from, and you know, nobody had ever honored him, and so the post decided to get a plaque in his honor and put it in the trophy case because he was a very good athlete. And his widow came, and she'd remarried, and she told us this was the first time he'd ever been honored in all the years.
What was his name?
Tommy Daffrin, Pinckneyville, Illinois.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about already that you'd like to add on to this interview?
Oh, I could keep you here all day just telling you stories about things that happened on the submarine. I would say this, I served with one of the best captains a man could ever have, Captain James Brown, and he ended up being a vice admiral and was on his way to being promoted, and he had a heart attack and had to get out of the Navy. I might say one other experience I had. We had completed our missile shots in Cape Canaveral and was headed back to Norfolk, and the captain got on communication to return to base, load one Polaris missile, and stand by. Well, he had no idea what it was all about. And when he got there and went in and saw the admiral, he said, President Kennedy is coming, and he wants to see a missile fired, and you're going to do it. So we had to do really scurvy around. But we fired the missile. I was in the control room, and I heard the president say, Indian fighter, this is American Eagle, fire one Polaris missile. And a week later, he was shot and killed.
Oh my. That is memorable. Well, thank you so much for allowing us to interview you and take your picture. And we appreciate your service very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for helping to